Hi, my friends. My name is Stu, and I'm the guy that's making a papyrus scroll of the Gospel according to John. And I've just finished writing down chapter 7. I'm going to talk about chapter 7. I'm only going to do one chapter from now on per video because quite a bit's happening. And I counted out, and you can see here, there's where I starting chapter 8 right there, and you can see these pages, and it kind of goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on for 25 pages so far. And I've just finished the 7th chapter. There's 21 chapters in John, assuming that each chapter is about the same length as the first 7. That means this thing is going to be 75 pages of papyrus long by the time it is finished. I'm trying to write small. It's difficult to write small on a rough surface with a fountain pen, which I have to use. I've mentioned that before. But I have a large amount of papyrus. I have to trim the edges of it so the top and the bottoms are even. So when I glue them together, I'm going to glue a bunch together tonight probably. So I want to talk about chapter 7 today. And right off the bat in chapter 7, we get something striking. And it tells us, or that John tells us, I should say, that Jesus decided he had to avoid Judea because the Jewish leaders are looking for ways to kill him. So this goes back. We'll find out in a bit that this goes directly back to the violating the Sabbath, quote unquote, violating the Sabbath because he healed somebody. Now we're told that there's a Jewish festival that's about to happen. It's coming up called the Festival of Tabernacles, also called Sukkot, and it lasts 7 days. And this commemorates the 40 years of wandering in the desert. A tabernacle is, you might know, is a sort of a tent, like a booth sort of tent thing. Now we're also told that his brothers are kind of doing what siblings do, and they're ribbing him a little bit. And John specifically tells us that they do not believe in him, and they're sort of teasing him about, you should go to because, he seemed to have been sort of chased away because people were trying to arrest him in chapter 6. So his brother's like, you should go and speak in Jerusalem. Yeah, and they're basically, kind of ribbing him a little bit. And I kind of get the impression, because there's something that I did not mention too much, or I don't think I mentioned at all, about the end of chapter 6. And that's where, when he was explaining to people why he was there, why he was here, and he talked about his comments about the bread of life, in the end, he ends up talking to just the 12 disciples. There's one of my dogs. Just the 12 disciples. And that kind of left me with the impression that he may have lost, after that speech about the bread of life, he may have lost a lot of followers. We don't know that for sure, but it seems like at the end he's talking to the 12, and the fact that his brothers are teasing him, it seems like maybe things went very much sideways, and a lot of people abandoned him or stopped following him at that point. So he tells his brothers it's not his time to go, but he ends up going in secret. And then we're also told that in Jerusalem, that the people were split. Some were saying that he was good, he was a good man, and other people were saying that he deceives the people. And we're told that these people are speaking in whispers, as if they're afraid that someone might overhear. Probably, my guess is, well, I might even say this, the Jewish leaders is who they're really worried about. So then, halfway through the festival, Jesus decides, he goes to the temple courts, and he decides to set up shop there and begin speaking. So he makes a public appearance at the temple courts, and he starts to teach. And again, we get some insight about him. We're often told in the Gospels that He teaches with authority. We find this mentioned several times, but here in John, that this is explained. And the listeners are saying, as they're listening to him speak, how did this man get such learning without having been taught? So now we understand that he seems to be speaking with authority, and this is a striking thing for them, because I'm sure there are some rabbis who speak with some level of authority, maybe not this much, but some. And but John comes out and tells us that these people are saying that he's speaking with such learning, and they seem to be amazed without having been taught, presumably, about the law and the prophets. So he probably wasn't the disciple of a respected rabbi, and he probably didn't go to the schools where you learn about the laws and the prophet. Or probably, if maybe all he ever gleaned would have been what he might have heard in a synagogue. And I think that this is kind of an important point. And I think it's important that I mention here that this is the scriptures then. Obviously, at this point, we're not talking about New Testament. We're talking strictly about the Jewish Tanakh or the Old Testament, right? You're talking about the books of Moses, the histories, the books of wisdom and poetry, and then the prophets, right? We're talking about the Old Testament, basically what we would say Genesis through Malachi. You can go out today and go to a bookstore, if there are still bookstores in your town, and probably buy a copy of the Bible for $10 or $20, maybe less. Probably they'll probably have multiple translations. If you don't like one, you can find another one. And if you buy one online, you can buy. I probably own myself a dozen different translations, or probably 8. I probably own 8 different translations of the Bible. In various forms, because I have some study Bibles, and I also have some regular Bibles, and I have some reference Bibles that have a lot of cross-references and stuff in them, but they don't have all of the footnotes like the study Bibles do. And then I have smaller ones I take, that I'll take to church, and I have large ones, big print, like that's an ESV behind me that's super gigantic print. It's like 17 point. I have old eyes. So, but back then, these documents are on either papyrus, this stuff, which is not inexpensive, or something even more expensive at the time, parchment, which is made from treated animal skins, right? It's made from lamb skin, or it's made from goat skin or something like that, and it's scraped down to the point where it's almost like paper, but it's still made out of animal skin. But you got to figure, you had to raise that animal and feed it and take care of it, and then you're doing stuff with the rest of the animal, of course, you're eating it, but the skin, if you need to make a scroll, let's say a big one like Jeremiah's, very big, you're going to need flocks and flocks of sheep or goats to furnish enough parchment to make something like that. But they're using papyrus. Papyrus is made out of a plant. It's like a sort of like a reed. It's like a long leaf that has this pulp inside, and you sort of skin the outside of the leaf and get to the pulp on the inside, and then this pulp is sort of woven down. It's put down on horizontal lines, and more is put on vertical lines, and then you sort of soak it in water for a long period of time, and that allows like some enzymes in it to sort of loosen up the starches, and that acts as a sort of a glue, like a natural glue for the papyrus. And then after it's soaked, and it has to soak for days, then you take it out and you set it on something, and you start pressing it. You put heavy weights on top of it, and with some kind of towels or something to absorb the moisture. And then every day you change those out, so it's squeezing out more and more of the moisture, and it's getting drier and drier. And by the time it's been pressed, then you kind of beat it down, or I don't know exactly how they did it. They had some way of making it smooth. And apparently, some papyruses were actually made quite well. I mean, this stuff that I have, there's 2 sides to it. There's the writing side and the sort of the not writing side. And if you get it wrong, there's a couple sheets in here where I'm on the wrong side of it. I'm on the rough side rather than the smooth side. It's slow going when you're trying to write. But I was reading about a papyrus. I can't remember I can't remember. I think it was of John, and it said that the quality of the papyrus was very high, and both the front side, the writing side, and the back side were both very smooth and would have been very easy to write on at the time. And this is something that's from like the 3rd century or 2nd century. It's very old. So a papyrus like that probably more expensive than the stuff that I'm using, comparatively. But my point is, if you have the entirety of the Tanakh, if you've got the Torah and all of the histories and all of the books of wisdom and all of the prophets, that's a huge number of scrolls, whether they're on papyrus or whether they're on parchment, and that it's going to be extremely expensive to produce. So this isn't something you're just going to let anyone come in and get their paws on and go and read through and maybe spill their drink on it or something. Who knows, right? So these documents are probably closely guarded because they're extremely valuable, and in some cases basically irreplaceable, because to replace them would require another flock of animals and all of the time and effort and the manual copying. So my point in all this is, it isn't like today where you can just go buy a Bible and you can have all of the scriptures right there in front of you and something that you can put in your back pocket and carry around. This was a big deal. To have access to these was a huge deal. And the fact is, most people probably, besides scribes and rabbis and the Pharisees, members of the Sanhedrin, all of these sorts of people, they probably all have, some of them might even have their own private collections, or they can check them out, or may have copies of certain sections of them that they're studying. Who knows? But those kinds of people would have access to these things. But the average person, certainly the son of a craftsman, probably doesn't get access to these things. So the only thing you're going to get is to be able to hear scripture is when the rabbi or someone is reading it in the synagogue. You're not going to get access to it any other time. You can't just go and say, "Yeah, my son wants to read the scroll of Isaiah." It's like, "Oh, that's very nice of him," unless he's a student of a rabbi. And we're told that he wasn't. He probably wasn't, but he still spoke with authority. Kind of makes it seem like he was there when it was all written, so he just knows it, right? Because he wouldn't have realistically have had access. At least it doesn't seem like he would have realistically had access to these documents, but he seems to know them extremely well and has a command of them. So much so we're told he speaks with authority. So I think that is kind of an important spot there for the context. And then after this comment is made about how he's speaking with authority and has never been taught, Jesus says, "Well, this is not my own teaching, but it comes from the one who sent me." Obviously, he's saying it comes from God. Then he tells his detractors, and these are probably the Jewish leaders, I would assume, although I don't think it says, that even though Moses gave them the law, no one keeps it. And then he asks why they keep trying to kill him. So at this point, as we would say in the modern vernacular, the Jewish leaders gaslight him and say, "You're demon possessed. Basically, you're crazy. Who's trying to kill you?" Then he goes back to the healing at the pool in Bethesda. And he explains that the rabbis are allowed to perform circumcision and not violate the Sabbath, but if he heals a man who couldn't walk for 38 years, well, that's a problem if he does that on the Sabbath, right? So he's sort of showing that there's a sort of ridiculous double standard here, that they're allowed to do something that's holy, and he is like literally changing this man's life, this man who has not been able to walk for 38 years and is performing literal miracles. And, oh, you can't do that on a Sabbath. So, yeah, kind of hypocrites, right? He'll call them that later. And now some of the people point out that, and they realize, oh, wait, this is the guy that the Jewish leaders want dead. So now the people who are listening, who aren't the Jewish leaders, are saying, oh, yeah, they do want you dead. right? So they're confirming all of this, which we find out right in the very beginning of this chapter. And then they notice they're not doing anything about it. The leaders aren't doing anything. They're not trying to seize him or anything like that. And some of the bystanders then conclude, that even they, meaning the Jewish leaders, must think that this is the Messiah. And then we get back to the same argument that was being had in Capernaum in chapter 6. Wait a minute, we know where this guy's from. We wouldn't know where the Messiah came from. This is the people speaking, probably not the Jewish leaders, because the Jewish leaders are going to say something more specifically about this that contradicts this, right? So we wouldn't know where the Messiah could come from, or because he's the Messiah, we just wouldn't know. They have no basis for this. They seem to think that he would just appear out of nowhere, and that would be it. But others point out that the signs that he performed, and they believe him, and they say, when the Messiah comes, will he perform more signs than this man? This is obviously a rhetorical question. They're saying, he's performing miracles. This does not happen every day. So the Pharisees, at this point, they try to arrest him, because now they're sort of being accused, or people are starting to assume that, they think that this is the Messiah because they're not doing anything about it. So it seems to me like the Pharisees are the crowd is sort of forcing the Pharisees' hand at this point. And Jesus tells them at this point that he will only be with them for a short time, and where he is going, they cannot go. And this of course, confuses them. Then on the last day of the festival, he makes another public appearance saying, anyone who is thirsty, come to me and drink. Whoever believes in me, as Scripture has said, rivers of living water will flow from within them. And then John the Apostle, who wrote the Gospel, he tells us that this is a reference to the Holy Spirit, that that when God's going to pour out his Spirit on the disciples, and this will happen in Acts, obviously. This divides those that are hearing him. Some people refer to Jesus as the prophet that Moses talked about. Others say he's the Messiah. And then some retort that Scripture says that the Messiah will come from David's line. This may be the Pharisees or the Jewish leaders that are saying this. I don't think it specifies, though. But they do say that that the Messiah will come from David's line and from Bethlehem, the town where David lives. So see, they're counteracting what the crowd was saying. We won't know where he comes from. He's going to come out of nowhere, right? And now they're starting to give some specifics. And of course, Jesus's early years are a little complicated because he's known as Jesus of Nazareth, but he was born when they were going to the census, so he was born in Bethlehem. Though this might not be a widely known fact, right? Because of the whole thing with Herod and, escaping to Egypt for a few years. Then some people do try to seize him, arrest him probably, and we're told that no one laid a hand on him. So maybe they were ordered to seize him and they chose not to, which kind of seems like what may have happened. So now we get to sort of near the end of chapter 7 here. And now at the end here, Nicodemus is back. You remember Nicodemus. He was in chapter 3, the conversation that Jesus tried to have with him about being born again. So the temple guards who were sent to seize him return, and the chief priests and the Pharisees ask them, why didn't you bring him in? And the guards say, no one has ever spoken the way this man does. So even they were like, there's something about this guy. This guy is just not some normal guy who's out here preaching. There's something special about him. This sets the leaders off, of course, and they assume the guards were deceived by Jesus. Then they point out that the leaders and the Pharisees haven't believed him, but this quote-unquote mob that knows nothing of the law, there is a curse upon them, or there is a curse on them. And then Nicodemus pipes up and says, "Does our law condemn a man without first hearing him to find out what he's been doing?" The answer to that is no. It doesn't just condemn people without a hearing, right? So then the other leaders tell Nicodemus, "You're from Galilee, you go look into it, and you'll find that a prophet doesn't come from Galilee." And then everyone goes back to their homes. And this also probably goes back to the fact that they don't know that he's from Bethlehem. So that's chapter 7. That's chapter 7. I'm at the point now, I'm actually on my scroll here. I only have 2 blank pages left. There's only 2 blank pages there. I don't know if you can see where the writing ends. There's only 2. So at this point, because I have to glue these pages together and there's like an inch overlap every time I do it, at this point, I got to take a bunch of pieces of papyrus and trim them down and glue them together into a long piece and then fuse those 2 pieces together so I can begin the process of writing the next third of the book of John. So I don't know when that's going to happen. I'm going to be traveling for a little bit, so it will probably be after that. I also bought a lot because I realized, I'm going to be using a lot of papyrus. So I got a lot of papyrus, and some of the listings for papyrus, I ordered so much of it, Amazon isn't listing it, or at least wasn't the last time I checked a couple days ago. So it seems that I may have cleared out someone's papyrus. I'm sure there will be more. And I'm not quite sure if I actually have enough to finish it yet, but maybe, I don't know. The other thing I got, which is that maybe for a future project, because I'm enjoying making these scrolls and I'm getting a lot out of it since I'm writing so slowly doing it. Because I got this giant roll of writing paper. Now this, I think, is Chinese writing paper. I don't remember. Yes, this is Chinese writing paper. It's 13.7 inches wide. It's a giant roll. This does not say how long it is, but it is very long. So I may try to write a scroll with this because that is much less expensive and probably smoother and easier to write on than papyrus. This papyrus thing looks really cool. It really does look neat. And I am very much enjoying writing this or writing it out or copying this out. But it is cumbersome. It is cumbersome to do. But I don't regret starting it, and I am going to finish it. But yeah. So anyway, if you have any comments or you have any questions about it or anything of the sort, feel free to leave a comment, and I will do my best to answer all of them. And I appreciate you taking a look at this, and I will see you next time. It'll probably be at least a week because I have some stuff to do before I can start the grind of writing again. So take care, my friends, and I will see you next time, and God bless you.